All right, I'm here with Elizabeth, my oldest daughter, and what episode are we talking about?
The Aztecs.
As I mentioned last week, I like to get your impression of the episode before we talk about it. So tell me what you
6.
thought. Okay, on a score of 1 to 10, how would you...
6.
A 6?
Yes.
So middle of the road.
Yes. Well, almost the middle of the road.
Okay, and why did you give it that score?
I need more excitement.
You need more excitement.
It's close to my... It has excitement, but it's kind of boring. That's a 9. And then 10's where it's excitement. It's not boring at all. It's beautiful. I love it.
Now, this was another historical episode.
Oh,
with
yes.
No science fiction, no aliens or
yes.
robots. Did that bother you?
No. I happen to like learning about my history. Since I wanted to learn.
Is it your history?
No, it's the world's history.
Okay.
Not our history.
Okay. So you're also in line for the next historical. Okay, so you like the historicals.
Yes.
So I grade Doctor Who on a curve, which means I have to give most episodes like a 4, 5, 6, or 7. I can't give a lot of 1s and 2s.
You said that on the last podcast.
Yeah, I can't give a lot of 2s or 9s and 10s. I'm giving this a 9.
Why are you giving it a 9?
This is one of my favorite episodes, certainly of this era of Doctor Who.
Wow. Hooray.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. The most important thing for me in a Doctor Who story is the strength of the secondary characters that they bring in.
Ah.
And if you don't have those, you can't have a great Doctor Who story.
What?
I loved almost all the extra characters here. Do you remember who they were?
There was Kameka, Tatoxel, Otlock,
Ixta.
Yes.
The perfect victim, whose name we never learn.
Exactly. He was just called the perfect victim this, the perfect victim that.
And my favorite was Latoxel.
Tatoxel.
I think the T's silent. In the episode, it was Latoxel.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was Tatoxel. Whatever.
Yeah, I loved his look. It didn't bother me that he was just completely evil. I thought everything worked about it. But what I really loved about this episode was... So Barbara, what is Barbara trying to do here? She's trying to stop them from doing human sacrifice, right? And why does she fail? Why can't she convince them? Because from the very outset, they tell us that the Aztecs know when it's going to rain. Which means they know that they don't need to kill people to make it rain. And so why can't she get them to stop doing ritual sacrifice? And it's because it's not their beliefs that she's running into, it's the power structure.
Oh yeah, because then she'd be trying to take down Latoxel.
Exactly. Latoxel doesn't really care about the human sacrifice per se. He cares about his position. And
yes.
And it isn't until she becomes a threat to his position that he becomes suspicious of her. And that is what makes him a bad guy.
And then he tries to poison her and prove that she's a false goddess and all that random stuff.
A lot happens. And also, as for the episode goes, this was 4 episodes, which is, for me, like the perfect length of a Doctor Who episode. I typically don't like the ones that are 6 or longer.
Yes. How long was the Keys of Marinus?
It was too long.
Oh, boy. All that.
And I also like that, we talked about in Marco Polo, where it tried to be funny at the end with Marco Polo and his wife, and it was just dumb. Here, when they try to be funny, when the doctor makes the hot cocoa, and he does it.
Because he didn't realize he was going to propose to her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "You declared my love for me, and I accept your proposal."
Yeah, that was actually funny. I thought that was funny.
What? He accidentally proposed to her? This is unexpected.
The only thing I didn't like in the episode was actually the quality of the version we watched. We watched it on BritBox on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
I do not own the DVD, and I'm very curious if the DVD is any better.
Okay.
And we have the DVD of an episode coming up.
The French Revolution era one.
Yes.
That I'm gonna do.
Yes. So
this is another historical.
If that one looks really good and sounds good, we may buy the Aztecs. let me ask you something else.
Yes?
What was Barbara's motivation in trying to get the Aztecs to stop sacrifice?
Because when the Spanish came sailing over the seas and encountered the Aztecs, they wouldn't be violent enough and they wouldn't destroy them for their violence. Peaceful and violent sacrificing sections.
Yes, more or less. Barbara knows because she just happens to coincidentally be an expert in Aztec history.
She just happened? That's very mysterious. What does she teach?
She's a history teacher.
Ah, so that makes sense.
It makes sense, but she knows a lot about the Aztecs. Like, she's able to identify the tomb, that it's a priest, when the priest died. But
wow,
what she's trying to do is she knows that the Aztecs' obsession with human sacrifice leaves them unprepared and ultimately leads to their extinction at the hand of the Spanish. And so she's actually trying to save the Aztec culture, right?
Yes.
But where did you get that? Did you get that from the book or did you get it from the show?
That book.
Yeah, see, me too. The book has sections where we're actually seeing what Barbara is thinking.
Yes, because she is the main character in this one.
And in the show, she barely mentioned it. She barely mentions it in the first episode before she's even mistaken for the priest.
The Yutaxa.
Yutaxa. And then the doctor barely mentions it in the fourth episode, but the episode doesn't make that as clear as the book does. And I've heard people, when they talk about this episode, make it sound like she's being like imperialistic or whatever, or trying to push her value system onto the Aztecs. Even though I don't think there's I don't think there's a lot of gray area when it comes to human sacrifice, but in any case, that's not what she's trying to do. She's actually trying to save them
from being extinct.
Yes.
And that happened anyway.
And so that was a big difference in just how the story read versus how it played on screen. But there weren't any major plot differences until the very end. Do you remember what happened at the very end in the book?
Yeah, because they were surrounded by guards, and they had tried to stop them from getting into the tomb with their secret way of getting into the tomb. And then Ian used the pencil torch, but they don't do that in the episode.
Yes, he uses a flashlight, and he points it at their face, and they freak out.
Because they don't have any technology.
Yes, and they didn't do that episode. And I actually thought that was an improvement in the episode, because in the book, all the way up to that point, they're sort of presented as, very intelligent and not always easily fooled. And for him to use the flashlight like that, it kind of turns them into caricatures. Whereas I thought it was much more dramatic in the show, where Ian throws Ixta off the temple, and then we get that camera shot of his body above, and then that's how they escape. I thought that was better. And so there was one other thing I thought that was silly, which was, do you think Ian, a science teacher, could defeat the greatest Aztec warrior who had already beaten 6 other of the greatest Aztec warriors to become the leader of the army?
That's just ridiculous. It's just science.
It's
weird. It's just weird.
So I happen to know from other books that Ian has a military background, but they do not mention it in this book or in the show.
What?
But even with a little martial arts training, because they do kind of mention that he has martial arts training in the book.
When did he get martial arts training?
In the military.
Wow, that's wow.
But I don't think that would be enough to defeat the greatest Aztec warrior.
Yeah.
It just does not make sense.
Exactly.
Do you think someone who has seen the episode should still read the book? Do you think the book adds enough?
Yes and no. Because if you like reading or you're bored because it's Corona now and you're bored and you don't have anything to do, you should read the book.
I'm a shill for this episode. I love this story and I think it is worth reading. But just be aware, it does not change a lot of the plot. The plot is almost exactly the same. I think every single scene that was in the book and it was in the show and vice versa, except for the flashlight at the end.
Yeah.
This book was written by John Lucarotti,
who wrote Marco Polo.
That's right.
I don't really like Marco Polo, even though he wrote it because it was boring and I gave that a 1.
Yeah, I'm wondering, since we did that episode, I'm reevaluating Marco Polo, and I wonder if I'm not going to raise its score by 1 point, because I think I gave it a 4, right? I think I might give it a 5.
Why?
I don't know. Time's been kind to that one. I don't know why. But I find myself thinking about that one a lot more than Keys of Marinus.
Yeah, you rated that like a 2.
I think I gave that one a 4 too. I don't remember.
You gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3?
You gave it a 3.
Dang. Yeah, that was a bad one. I've already mentioned who my favorite secondary character was, but did I ask you who's your favorite secondary character?
Latoxel.
Latoxel.
Yes.
You liked him better than Autolock. And
Well,
why?
Because is exciting.
Yeah.
I like the violin.
Okay. Yeah, so John Lucarotti wrote both scripts, he wrote both books, and John Lucarotti actually lived in Mexico and spent a lot of time studying the Aztecs.
Wow.
For this episode.
I did not know that. Thank you
Yeah.
for telling me.
Susan doesn't get a lot to do in this story.
Yeah, except she's supposed to marry because it's arranged the perfect victim, and he's going to die anyway.
Yeah.
She's very stubborn.
Yeah.
I'm most like her. I'm stubborn, and I argue a lot. And that's kind of a relation to Marco Polo because Pincho is arranged to get married to Marco Polo, and then this one it's Susan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He does do that twice.
Yes.
That's true.
That is true. And
All right.
Susan was Pincho's best friend, so now she's the one who has to get married. It's crazy.
I think there's only one more Lucarotti story after this. I'm not sure. I think it's just one more. And it might be another historical. I don't remember. Who is your favorite character on the TARDIS at this point?
Susan!
It's still Susan?
Yes!
This is the episode that turns it around for me because now it's definitely Barbara, and it'll be Barbara for a long time.
She is a strong, independent woman.
Okay. Where did you? Okay.
I don't even know. I just said that.
She is extremely well written here. Like as a history teacher thrown into history, you can kind of see this. The other slight difference in the book is in the show, she goes native real quickly. Like it only takes her like 20 minutes to go from like walking out of the TARDIS and then just saying, you know what, I'm Yetaxa now. I'm going to do whatever I want. In the book, it's a little more gradual and they sell it a little more. And something else that bothered me about this episode, in the very beginning, she walks out of the TARDIS and she finds the tomb. And what does she do?
She puts on the bracelet.
Yeah, she steals the bracelet.
Yes!
And stealing things from tombs is a pretty, like, universally frowned upon thing.
Yes.
But she casually picks it up and puts it on her wrist.
In the books, she said she slipped it on absent-mindedly and didn't even notice.
Yeah, okay, see, that is him trying to fix something after the fact, I think. Yeah, you're really not supposed to even touch anything on the tomb.
Yes, it was a high priest. It was Yetaxa.
Yetaxa.
Yeah, and for some reason they don't even care about her gender, and they only care that she has a bracelet that belonged to Yetaxa.
That's right, because Yetaxa was a guy, and
yes.
they don't find it hard to believe that the priest could be reincarnated as the woman. Because Autolock is a true believer. Otlock, not Autolock. Autolock's a transformer. Otlock is so dismayed at what happens that at the end, what does he do at the end? He just walks into the forest.
And dies.
I don't know. He doesn't die. They don't say that. He just says that he's not coming back. But
he does die eventually.
I mean, everyone does eventually, but he retires to the forest. Let's just say that.
Instead of the garden.
Yes. Yeah, the other thing is the garden. When people reach, what was the age? Like 52, they get to go hang out in the garden?
51, 52, 53.
But you notice Otlock and Latoxel, I think, are both 52 or older. Certainly Otlock is. And they're not forced into retirement. They still have their positions of power. And that is why Barbara fails because she's going up against that male-dominated power structure of the society.
And I've been there for like a while.
And I wonder if that's intentional on the part of the author. Like, I wonder if he realized that's what he was doing or if that was unintentional. Because that's actually really interesting for the early 60s. Both in the way and how they present the Aztecs and this sort of like political subtext, right? Because I think in other shows in the 1960s, if they had done a story like this, it would have been, you know, the TARDIS crew are aghast at ritual human sacrifice and they try to impose their beliefs on the Aztecs, and the Aztecs would end up being portrayed as extremely primitive and refusing to believe anything else. And that is not at all what's happening in this story.
Yeah.
So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. One of my favorites.
One of your favorites.
Yeah. Very glad this one's not lost.
What are you gonna rate a 10?
I mean, I have all the episodes ranked and I've penciled in my scores and I'm going over them all as we do this podcast.
Fine.
So like,
whatever.
I used to think more highly of Keys of Marinus, and after watching it, I did not like it very much. Yeah. And I knew I was going to like this one, but every time I watch it, I like it even more.
Oh my god.
But yeah, the 10s come much later because there's only 4 episodes that get a 10.
Wow.
Wait till we watch the ones.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to rate Marco Polo 0, but you said I could only rate it a 1. So I rated it a 1. Because it's not 0 to 10, it's 1 to 10. So I gave it the lowest score I possibly could.
If you have a question for Elizabeth or Josie, you can email me. My email's in the show notes, or you can @ me on Twitter. Anything else? Next episode is The Censorites with Josie.
That's gonna be annoying, and I don't think I'll read it or watch it until you make me.
You need to watch it because I think after the first season, we're going to get together and we're going to rank all the episodes. And we're going to do the first podcast with all 3 of us. And that'll be interesting.